In the heart of a bustling city, where towering skyscrapers cast long shadows over narrow, dirty streets, a young girl named Maya fought daily battles just to survive. Her world was one of constant noise, the honking of cars, the chatter of crowds, and the occasional wail of sirens, but her life was anything but ordinary. At only 13 years old, she carried the weight of responsibility far beyond her years. Clutched tightly in her arms were two tiny infants, her twin siblings, who depended on her for everything. Maya's story began months ago when their parents abandoned them, leaving her as the sole caregiver. With no money, no home, and no one to turn to, she wandered aimlessly until she found herself begging near a luxurious hotel. It wasn't an easy life. The sun scorched her skin during the day, while biting winds chilled her bones at night. She slept under a rickety bridge, using scraps of cardboard and old blankets to shield herself and the babies from the cold. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but she always made sure the twins ate first, even if it meant skipping meals herself. Every morning, Maya would bundle up the twins in whatever clothes she could find. Hand-me-downs scavenged from trash bins or donated by kind strangers, and head out to her usual spot outside the hotel. She sat there for hours holding out a small tin can, hoping passers-by would drop a coin or two. Some people ignored her completely, averting their eyes as though looking at her pain might stain their polished lives. Others tossed coins carelessly, almost like throwing crumbs to a stray dog. But occasionally, someone stopped to offer a smile, or a kind word, moments that gave Maya enough strength to keep going. One particularly dreary afternoon, dark clouds gathered overhead, threatening rain. The streets grew quieter than usual, with most people hurrying indoors to escape the impending storm. Maya huddled closer to her siblings, shielding them from the gusty wind. Just as the first drops of rain began to fall, a sleek black car pulled up near the hotel entrance. Out stepped a man dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his presence commanding attention. This was Adrian Grant, one of the richest men in the city. Known for his sharp mind and icy demeanor, he seemed untouchable, a figure straight out of magazines and headlines. As Adrian turned toward the hotel doors, Maya hesitated. She had seen him before, passing by without so much as a glance in her direction. But today felt different. Desperation bubbled inside her chest, and she knew she couldn't let this opportunity slip away. Summoning every ounce of courage, she approached him, clutching the twins close. Rain soaked through her thin clothes, but she didn't care. Standing there, shivering yet determined, she looked directly into his eyes and said, "Please, sir, take them. I can't feed them anymore." Her voice trembled, but her plea was clear. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Adrian stared at her, startled by her boldness. He saw not just a beggar girl, but a child burdened by circumstances far beyond her control. And in that brief pause, something shifted within him. A spark of curiosity, perhaps, or maybe the faintest flicker of compassion. Little did either of them know, this single act of desperation would change both their lives forever. Maya's voice echoed faintly in the rain-soaked air, trembling but resolute. "Please, sir, take them. I can't feed them anymore." Her words hung between her and Adrian like an invisible thread, fragile, yet unbreakable. The billionaire froze, his polished leather shoes splashed with mud from the wet pavement. He had faced countless challenges in boardrooms, negotiated million-dollar deals, and commanded respect from everyone around him. But this raw, desperate plea from a child clutching two infants was something he had no prepared response for. For a moment, Adrian simply stared at her. His sharp eyes scanned her face, taking in the dirt smudged across her cheeks, the weary lines etched into her forehead despite her youth, and the fierce determination in her gaze. She wasn't just asking for help. She was offering everything she had left, her siblings, her pride, her last shred of hope. It was as if she believed that handing over the twins might save them, even if it broke her heart in the process. The rain continued to pour down, soaking through Maya's tattered clothes and dripping off her tangled hair. Adrian felt a strange pang in his chest, unfamiliar and uncomfortable. He glanced at the babies cradled in her arms, tiny, fragile beings wrapped in worn blankets, their faces pale and drawn. They were too quiet, almost unnaturally so, as though they'd learned not to cry because no one would come. It struck him, then. These children were fighting for survival every single day, just like Maya. Adrian opened his mouth to speak but found himself at a loss for words. What could he possibly say? That he was sorry? That he couldn't help? No. Those responses felt hollow, inadequate. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, extracting a few crisp bills. Without hesitation, he placed them into Maya's trembling hand. "Here," he said gruffly, avoiding her eyes. "Buy food for them." But Maya didn't move. She clutched the money tightly, but didn't step back. Instead, she looked up at him again, her dark eyes piercing through the rain. "This won't be enough," she whispered. "It never is, please. They deserve better than this life." Her honesty hit Adrian like a punch to the gut. He had spent years building walls around himself, focusing on success and wealth while shutting out emotions. Yet here was this girl, barely more than a child herself, standing in front of him with nothing, and somehow possessing more courage than he ever thought possible. He hesitated, torn between walking away and doing something drastic. Helping beggars wasn't part of his routine. Charity events, yes. He often wrote checks to organizations or attended galas where donations flowed freely. But this was different. This was personal. This required action, not just money. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Adrian spoke. "Come with me," he said abruptly, gesturing toward his car. Maya flinched, clutching the twins closer. "What do you mean?" she asked cautiously, suspicion creeping into her tone. "I mean exactly what I said," Adrian replied, his voice firm but not unkind. "Get in the car. We'll figure something out." Maya hesitated, weighing her options. Trusting a stranger, especially someone as intimidating as Adrian, went against every instinct she had. But what choice did she really have? Staying on the streets meant watching her siblings grow weaker each day until there was nothing left to fight for. Taking a deep breath, she nodded slowly and followed him to the car. As they drove away, Maya stared out the window, her mind racing. Who was this man? And why had he decided to help her? Was this some sort of trick? Or was he truly willing to change their fate? Meanwhile, Adrian sat stiffly behind the wheel, his thoughts equally chaotic. What had possessed him to intervene? Why did this girl's plight resonate so deeply with him? Neither of them had answers yet, but one thing was certain. Their lives had collided in a way neither could have anticipated. And whether they realized it or not, this chance encounter would set into motion a series of events that would alter the course of both their futures forever. Back at his sleek penthouse apartment, Adrian found himself unable to shake off the image of Maya and the twins. The rain-soaked girl with dirt-streaked cheeks and the weight of the world on her shoulders lingered in his mind like a shadow he couldn't escape. For hours after dropping her off at a temporary shelter, he paced the floor-to-ceiling windows of his high-rise, staring out at the glittering city below. But tonight, the lights didn't bring their usual comfort. Instead, they seemed cold and distant, much like the life he had built for himself. Adrian wasn't used to feeling unsettled. He prided himself on being in control of his business, his emotions, his future. Yet here he was, haunted by the desperate plea of a child who had nothing. It wasn't just her words that stuck with him, it was the look in her eyes. There was no self-pity there, only determination and love, a kind of fierce devotion he hadn't seen in years. It reminded him of someone else, himself, as a boy. Memories he had long buried began surfacing against his will. He thought about his own childhood, growing up poor in a cramped apartment, losing his mother to illness when he was barely 10, and being shuffled between foster homes where kindness was rare. Back then, he had promised himself never to feel powerless again. He worked tirelessly, clawed his way to the top, and built an empire from scratch. Along the way, though, He had closed off parts of himself, the parts that felt empathy, vulnerability, or compassion. Now standing in his luxurious penthouse overlooking the city, those walls felt weaker than ever. Determined to understand more, Adrian decided to dig deeper. He discreetly sent his trusted assistant, Clara, to gather information about Maya. Within days, Clara returned with details that painted a heartbreaking picture. Maya lived under a crumbling bridge with her siblings, surviving on scraps scavenged from garbage bins and whatever little money she earned begging. She hadn't attended school in years, instead dedicating every waking moment to caring for the twins. Despite her hardships, neighbors described her as resilient and kind, often sharing what little food she had with other struggling families. The more Adrian learned, the heavier the weight on his chest became. He realized that Maya wasn't just another faceless statistic in the city's growing population of homeless children. She was a fighter, a survivor, someone who deserved better than the hand life had dealt her. And yet, she wasn't asking for pity. All she wanted was a chance for herself and her siblings to rise above their circumstances. One evening, as Adrian sat alone in his study nursing a glass of whiskey, he made a decision. He couldn't ignore this any longer. Whether it stemmed from guilt, curiosity, or something deeper he didn't fully understand, he knew he had to act. Picking up his phone, he dialed Clara's number. "Arrange a meeting," he instructed, firmly. "Tell her I want to discuss options." Clara hesitated before responding. "Sir, are you sure about this? People might talk. They'll say you're getting too involved." "I don't care what they say," Adrian snapped, surprising even himself with the sharpness of his tone. Softening slightly, he added, "Just make it happen." The next day, Maya received word through one of the shelter volunteers that Adrian wanted to see her. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. What did he want now? Hadn't he already done enough by helping them get temporary shelter? Still, she agreed to meet him, knowing she couldn't afford to turn down any opportunity to secure a better future for her siblings. When Maya arrived at Adrian's corporate headquarters, a towering glass building that seemed to touch the clouds, she felt completely out of place. Dressed in borrowed clothes that were still too big for her slight frame, she nervously clutched the twins close as she stepped inside. The polished marble floors, gleaming elevators, and impeccably dressed employees intimidated her, but she forced herself to keep moving forward. As the elevator doors opened onto Adrian's private office suite, Maya took a deep breath. Whatever awaited her beyond those doors, she told herself she would face it head on. After all, she had survived worse. Little did she know, this meeting would change everything, not just for her and the twins, but for Adrian as well. When Maya entered Adrian's office, her breath caught in her throat. The room was unlike anything she had ever seen, spacious and filled with light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline. A large mahogany desk stood at the center, surrounded by sleek leather, chairs and shelves lined with books and awards. Everything about the space screamed wealth and power, making Maya feel even smaller than she already did. Adrian rose from his seat as she approached, his towering figure both imposing and oddly comforting. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Maya shifted uncomfortably, clutching the twins tighter to her chest. She felt out of place, like an intruder in a world she didn't belong to. Finally, Adrian broke the silence. "Sit down," he said, gesturing toward one of the chairs across from him. His tone was calm but firm, leaving no room for argument. Maya hesitated before carefully lowering herself into the chair, adjusting the babies so they rested more comfortably against her. Adrian studied her for a moment, noting how young she looked despite the weight of responsibility she carried. He cleared his throat and began speaking. "I've been thinking about your situation," he said slowly, choosing his words carefully. "And I want to help. Not just temporarily, but in a way that can change things for you and the twins." Maya blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. Help? From someone like him? She opened her mouth to respond, but found herself at a loss for words. What could she possibly say to such an offer? Adrian continued, leaning forward slightly. I'll cover all expenses related to the twins' upbringing. Food, clothing, medical care, education. Whatever they need, it's taken care of. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then, after a brief hesitation, he added, "But there's one condition." Maya tensed, her heart pounding. Here it comes, she thought. The catch, the price she would have to pay for his generosity. What do you want?" she asked cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to stay involved in their lives," Adrian replied firmly. "You're their sister, Maya. They need you, and I believe you deserve a chance to build a better future for yourself too." Her eyes widened in surprise. This wasn't what she had expected. Most people who offered help wanted something in return, loyalty, servitude, or worse. But Adrian was asking her to remain part of her siblings' lives, to keep fighting for them alongside him. It was almost too good to be true. Still, skepticism lingered in her mind. "Why are you doing this?" she asked bluntly, meeting his gaze. "People like you don't usually care about people like us." Adrian flinched at her honesty but didn't look away. "Maybe I should," he admitted quietly. "Your courage reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That life isn't just about success or money. Sometimes it's about helping others, when they need it most." For a long moment, Maya simply stared at him, trying to gauge whether he was sincere. She wanted to trust him, to believe that he truly meant what he said. But years of hardship had taught her to be cautious. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll accept your help. But I won't let anyone take my place with them, ever." Relief washed over Adrian's face, though he quickly masked it with his usual stoic expression. "Fair enough," he said, extending his hand. "We'll work together to give them, and you, the life you all deserve." Maya hesitated before reaching out to shake his hand. Her small fingers felt dwarfed by his, but there was strength in her grip. In that moment, an unspoken agreement passed between them. Adrian would provide resources and stability, while Maya would ensure love and family remained at the core of the twins' lives. As they finalized the details of their arrangement, Maya couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope ignite within her. For the first time in years, the crushing weight on her shoulders seemed a little lighter. She knew challenges lay ahead, but for now, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were finally stepping onto a path towards something better. Over the weeks that followed, Maya and Adrian began navigating their newfound partnership, each stepping cautiously into uncharted territory. For Maya, it was a delicate balancing act, grateful for Adrian's support, but fiercely protective of her independence. She refused to let herself become dependent on his wealth, knowing how easily charity could turn into control. Meanwhile, Adrian found himself grappling with emotions he hadn't felt in years: empathy, vulnerability, and even admiration for the resilience this young girl showed every day. Their interactions started small but meaningful. Adrian arranged for Maya and the twins to move into a modest yet safe apartment, far from the damp and dangerous bridge they had called home. The place was simple: a cozy living room, 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen stocked with essentials. But to Maya, it felt like a palace. For the first time in months, she tucked the twins into real beds instead of makeshift mats on the ground. Watching them sleep peacefully, she allowed herself a rare moment of quiet gratitude. Adrian didn't stop there. He introduced Maya to resources she never knew existed: food banks, free medical clinics, and educational programs designed to help struggling families get back on their feet. At first, Maya was hesitant to accept these offerings, wary of owing anyone anything. But as she saw the positive impact they had on her siblings' health and well-being, her resistance softened. Slowly, she began trusting Adrian's intentions, or at least trusting that he genuinely wanted to help. What surprised Maya most, however, wasn't just what Adrian gave her, but what she ended up giving him in return. Through their conversations, Maya unknowingly opened doors to parts of Adrian's past he had long kept locked away. One evening, while discussing the twins' progress in daycare, Maya mentioned how much she admired their ability to laugh despite everything they'd been through. "They remind me that joy can still exist even when life feels impossible," she said softly. Her words struck a chord deep within Adrian. That night, alone in his penthouse, he reflected on his own childhood. The loneliness, the hunger, the nights spent wondering if anyone would ever care enough to notice him. Those memories had shaped him into the man he was today, driven, successful, but emotionally distant. Yet here was Maya, barely a teenager, showing him that pain didn't have to harden your heart. It could also teach you compassion. Inspired by her perspective, Adrian started opening up in ways he never thought possible. During their meetings, he shared stories of his youth, how he worked odd jobs after school to support himself, how he studied late into the night by candlelight because electricity was a luxury his foster family couldn't afford. Maya listened, intently, nodding along as though she understood exactly what he meant. And perhaps she did. Their lives were different in many ways, but they shared a common thread of struggle and survival. As their bond grew stronger, so did the changes in both their lives. Maya enrolled in night classes to earn her high school diploma, determined to create a better future not just for her siblings but for herself too. Adrian supported her efforts wholeheartedly, ensuring she had access to tutors and study materials. In return, Maya taught him lessons money couldn't buy: the value of perseverance, the importance of kindness, and the power of human connection. The twins thrived under this new stability. Their once pale faces gained color, their laughter filled. The apartment and their curiosity about the world around them blossomed. Adrian visited often, bringing toys or books during his trips, delighting in their giggles and wide-eyed wonder. Each visit reminded him why he had chosen to step into their lives, not out of obligation but because it felt right. Yet, amidst all the progress, challenges loomed on the horizon. Not everyone approved of Adrian's involvement in Maya's life. His business partners whispered behind closed doors, questioning his judgment and accusing him of wasting resources on street kids. Some members of Maya's community accused her of abandoning her roots, claiming she had sold out for a taste of luxury. These criticisms weighed heavily on both of them, testing the fragile trust they had built. Despite the doubts swirling around them, Maya and Adrian remained steadfast. They weren't just helping each other survive, they were learning to live again, rediscovering pieces of themselves they thought were lost forever. Together, they proved that sometimes the most unlikely alliances can lead to the greatest transformations. As months passed, Maya and Adrian's partnership began to face its first real test. The whispers of disapproval from both their worlds grew louder, creating cracks in the foundation they had worked so hard to build. For Maya, the criticism came from her own community. People who once pitied her now accused her of forgetting where she came from. "You think you're better than us now?" one neighbor spat during a tense encounter outside the local market. "Living off some rich man's charity like you're too good for this place." Maya clenched her fists, biting back tears as she walked away. She wanted to scream at them, to explain that nothing about her life felt easy or glamorous. But deep down, their words stung because they echoed her own fears. That accepting Adrian's help might make her lose herself, that she'd become someone unrecognizable. At night, lying awake in her small apartment, she replayed those accusations over and over, wondering if she was making a mistake. For Adrian, the pressure came from a different direction. His business associates openly mocked his involvement with Maya and the twins, dismissing it as a fleeting act of guilt rather than genuine altruism. During a board meeting, one of his longtime partners scoffed, "Since when do we invest in beggars, Adrian? This isn't philanthropy, it's indulgence." The comment cut deeper than Adrian cared to admit. He prided himself on being logical, calculated, a man who made decisions based on facts, not emotions. Yet here he was, pouring time and resources into a girl he barely knew, driven by something he couldn't quite name. The tension reached a breaking point one evening when Adrian arrived at Maya's apartment unannounced. He had been planning to check on the twins, but instead he found Maya packing a suitcase. Her movements were quick and deliberate, her jaw set in determination. When she saw him, she froze, caught off guard. "What are you doing?" Adrian asked, his voice sharp with surprise. "I'm leaving," Maya replied without looking at him. "I can't keep taking your money, not when everyone thinks I'm using you." Adrian stepped closer, frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. "Is that what you think, that you're using me?" "No," Maya shot back, finally meeting his gaze. "But I don't want to owe anyone anything, not even you. You've done so much already, more than I ever expected. But maybe it's time I figured things out on my own." Her words hit Adrian like a punch to the gut. He realized then how fragile trust truly was, how easily it could shatter under the weight of doubt. For a moment, anger flared within him. Not at Maya, but at himself. Had he pushed too hard? Tried to fix everything without considering what she needed? Taking a deep breath, Adrian softened his tone. "Maya, listen to me. I didn't offer to help because I wanted to control you or your life. I did it because I believed in you, in your strength, your love for your siblings, your ability to rise above everything that's been thrown at you. If staying here makes you feel trapped, then go. But know this. My support doesn't come with strings attached. It never has." Maya stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. Part of her wanted to believe him, to trust that his intentions were pure. But another part of her feared letting go of the independence she had fought so hard to preserve. After a long pause, she whispered, I need to figure out who I am without all of this. Without owing anyone." Adrian nodded slowly, understanding dawning on him. "Then do it," he said firmly. "But remember, you're not alone. Whether you stay or leave, I'll always be here if you need me." With that, Adrian turned and walked out of the apartment, leaving Maya standing amidst half-packed belongings. As the door clicked shut behind him, she sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Pride warred with gratitude. Fear clashed with hope. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider that maybe trusting someone, even someone like Adrian, didn't mean losing herself. It simply meant finding a new way forward, together yet apart. Determined to prove herself, Maya made the bold decision to step away from Adrian's direct support and forge her own path. She unpacked the suitcase she had started filling that fateful night and resolved to rely on her own strength while still embracing the opportunities Adrian had introduced her to. With unwavering focus, she threw herself into building a better future, not just for the twins, but for herself as well. Maya secured a job at a local cafe near their apartment, working long hours as a barista. The work was tiring, and some days her feet ached so much she could barely stand. But every tip she earned felt like a small victory, proof that she could provide for her siblings without depending entirely on someone else. Her co-workers admired her determination, often staying late to help her practice English or offering advice on balancing work and studies. Slowly but surely, Maya began carving out a life where she felt in control again. At the same time, she continued attending night classes, determined to complete her high school education. It wasn't easy juggling work, studies, and caring for the twins, but Maya refused to give up. On nights when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, she reminded herself of how far they'd come. From sleeping under a bridge to having a roof over their heads, food on the table, and dreams within reach. Each test passed, each assignment completed brought her closer to the goal she had set for herself. Independence. Adrian, though stepping back as promised, remained quietly supportive from afar. He checked in occasionally, sending messages through Clara to ensure Maya and the twins were doing well. When Maya mentioned needing textbooks for her classes, a package arrived anonymously at her doorstep. When the cafe manager hinted at cutting shifts due to low staffing, Adrian discreetly arranged for additional funding to keep the business afloat, ensuring Maya wouldn't lose her job. Though he no longer played an active role in their daily lives, his presence lingered. A safety net Maya didn't realize she still needed. Meanwhile, Adrian underwent his own transformation. Inspired by Maya's resilience, he began channeling his resources toward helping others in similar situations. He launched a foundation aimed at supporting underprivileged children and families, naming it after the twins, Hope and Harmony. The initiative provided scholarships, housing assistance, and mentorship programs, giving countless families a second chance at stability. Maya became one of the foundation's earliest advocates, sharing her story at events and encouraging others not to give up. Their partnership evolved into something deeper than either of them had anticipated: mutual respect and admiration. Maya taught Adrian the value of humility, showing him that true success wasn't measured in wealth but in the lives he touched. In turn, Adrian gave Maya the confidence to dream bigger than she ever thought possible. Together, they organized community outreach programs, raising funds and awareness for those struggling to survive in the city's shadows. As the years went by, the twins grew into bright, curious children, excelling in school and thriving under the love and care of their older sister. They adored Adrian, calling him uncle despite his initial protests. To them, he wasn't just a benefactor, he was family, a constant figure who showed up when it mattered most. For Adrian, their affection filled a void he hadn't realized existed until now. One evening, as Maya watched the twins laugh and play in their tiny living room, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Life wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was good. She had fought tooth and nail to create this world for her siblings, and though Adrian had played a part, she knew the victories were hers. Still, she couldn't deny the impact he'd had on her journey. That night she sent him a simple text: "Thank you for believing in us." Adrian read the message with a smile, realizing that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can spark the greatest change. What started as a desperate plea on a rainy street had transformed 2 lives, and countless others, forever. Years passed, and the bond between Maya and Adrian only grew stronger, though it had transformed into something far more profound than either of them could have imagined. The once desperate girl who clutched her twin siblings on a rainy street now stood tall, confident and unrecognizable from the frightened child she used to be. Her hard work paid off in ways that exceeded even her wildest dreams. She graduated at the top of her class, earned a scholarship to a prestigious university, and began working as a counselor for underprivileged youth. She poured her energy into helping others navigate the same struggles she had faced, becoming a beacon of hope for families trapped in cycles of poverty. The twins, now teenagers, were thriving in their own right. They excelled academically, participated in sports, and radiated the kind of joy only children with stable, loving lives could possess. Their laughter filled rooms, their curiosity about the world knew no bounds, and their admiration for their older sister was boundless. To them, Maya wasn't just a sibling, she was a hero, someone who had sacrificed everything to give them a future worth fighting for. Adrian, too, had changed in ways he never thought possible. The cold, calculating billionaire who once measured success solely by profit margins now found fulfillment in giving back. His foundation, Hope and Harmony, became a cornerstone of the community, providing resources and opportunities to thousands of families. He often credited Maya for inspiring him to use his wealth not just to accumulate more, but to make a real difference. Through her resilience, he had rediscovered the humanity he'd buried beneath years of ambition and isolation. One sunny afternoon marked a milestone neither of them would ever forget: the grand opening of a new community center, named after the twins, Harmony Heights. It was a sprawling facility equipped with classrooms, libraries, recreational spaces, and counseling offices, designed to uplift struggling families and provide them with tools to build better futures. As cameras flashed and reporters jotted down notes, Maya stood beside Adrian on the stage, clutching the microphone with trembling hands. "I never imagined I'd be here today," she began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "When I handed my siblings to Mr. Grant all those years ago, I didn't know if they or I would survive another week. But because of his belief in us, we didn't just survive, we thrived. This center represents what happens when compassion meets action. It's proof that even the smallest acts of kindness can change lives forever." Applause erupted around them, echoing through the crowd gathered outside the gleaming building. Tears glistened in Maya's eyes as she turned to Adrian, extending her hand. Instead of shaking it, he pulled her into an unexpected hug, a rare display of emotion from the usually reserved man. "You did this," he whispered, loud enough for only her to hear. "Not me. You reminded me what it means to truly live." As the ceremony concluded, Maya wandered through the bustling halls of the community center, watching children laugh, parents smile, and volunteers guide visitors with warmth and enthusiasm. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of how far she'd come and how much farther she could go. Her journey wasn't over, but she finally felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. Later that evening, as fireworks lit up the night sky above Harmony Heights, Maya approached Adrian, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. Handing one to him, she smiled, softly. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice carrying the depth of years of gratitude for believing in us when no one else would. Adrian took a sip, his gaze fixed on the colorful bursts of light overhead. After a moment, he replied, "No, Maya. Thank you. You reminded me that life isn't about climbing higher. It's about reaching out. And because of you, I've learned how to do both." In that moment, surrounded by the hum of celebration and the promise of brighter tomorrows, Maya realized something profound. Their story wasn't just about survival or success. It was about connection. 2 people from vastly different worlds had collided in a way that changed them both forever. Together, they had proven that compassion, courage, and trust could bridge even the widest gaps and create something beautiful in the process. Underneath the sparkling sky, with the echoes of laughter and applause fading into the night, Maya and Adrian shared a quiet understanding. Some bonds transcend circumstance, and some moments redefine lives, and theirs was one of them.